Welcome to my podcast, a place where we explore the Bible. May each episode you hear empower, enrich, and enlighten you more in the knowledge of Jesus Christ. God's blessing to everyone, for this is the day that the Lord has made, and how we rejoice in it, because God has done great things. I am Taisha Thompson, and on today we will be discussing, who are you? Really, who are you? Are you you? Of course you're you. Yet there's another aspect that's in play, and that deals with how the enemy is working hard to distort the image God created us to be as humanity from the beginning of the world. And that is to display the image of God. He's distorting that image, causing us to have identity crisis, because he has stolen the image we were to bear and making us be whatever we want to be. And that is not true. Either you're bearing the image of God or you're bearing the image of Satan. There is no middle ground. I know we believe that I'm just being me and this is how I am, but there is an influence that is taking place in the unseen world that is causing us to now demonstrate something that is beyond our own selves. And that's where our identity comes from. This unseen world that is forcing upon us to bear an image that opposes God. But I'm here to let us know that God is re-establishing, restoring the church back to its original state, and that is to display the image that God called us to be from the foundation of the world, when he created the heavens, the earth, and everything in it. And that is to bear God's image. We are image bearers. And what does that mean when we say we are image bearers? I like how Google search define an image bearer as to reflect something in nature and character to the rest of creation. So an image bearer is someone that's reflecting in nature and character something, and that something is God. And we're showing the rest of the world that this is God. So when you see me, you see God. But of course we're not like Jesus, because Hebrews 1:3 says Jesus is the express image of God. Jesus is identical to God. Every aspect of Jesus is God. But we are able to give you a glimpse of who God is as we yield to God's character, God's nature, and God's being. Because we need to understand, when the fall took place in Genesis 3, it distorted the image in which we were to bear. Because sin has corrupted the image. It made the image blurry. So when Jesus claimed he's no blurry image of God, he's exactly what you see when you see God, because he is God. And as we are looking unto Jesus and we're seeing Jesus, we are reflecting the same image, an unbroken image, an undistorted image of God. Whether we want to believe it or not, everyone is designed to bear an image. We all carry an image. We all display an image because God created us to be that way. And so often we think, well, I want to be whatever I want to be. Yet not knowing that us being whatever we want to be is really reflecting the image of Satan. And if you have been ignorant to that, as we all have been, we can be renewed in our mind we can take on a new look, a new appearance, a new lifestyle by yielding ourselves to the work of Jesus Christ and to reflecting him in his image, because we all have an image. It tells us this in Genesis 1 verse 26 and 27, when it says, God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. So not only are we carriers of God's image, we were made to be like God. Notice it said likeness, not is. We are not God, but we are like God on the earth. We are many steps down from God. But he wanted us to be like him. And in us being like him, he gave us dominion. That means rule and authority over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, over the cattle and all the earth, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Then the next verse goes on to say, God created man in his image. And in his image, he created him, male and female, he created them. Notice how these two verses put so much emphasis on us being made in the image of God. In our society, some people may say, well, everybody was created in the image of God. That was God's original intent and God's design to create us to look like him. Because when you look at the word image, it also means representative figure or model. So we were to model God in the earth. And he put so much emphasis on that to let us know that this is your identity. This is why our image is so tied to our identity and our persona, because it's embedded in us to bear an image. Why do you think the enemy works so hard to distort our image? Why do we think there's such an identity crisis in our society? Because we were created to bear an image. And he knows that. That's why he has stolen the image we are to bear. And when Jesus came, he restored it. And he says, I'm going to give you the power. I'm going to empower you and make a change in you and transform you to reflect me in the earth. You're reflecting God's character. You're displaying God's image. You're showing forth the nature of God and his being. And when we don't want to reflect God and we say, I just want to be me, I want to be whatever I want to be, you're not really being whoever you want to be. You're making an idol out of yourself. When we don't want to demonstrate, display, or look like God, we have made ourselves an idol. That's what the enemy image really is. That's where idolatry comes from. We have made an idol out of ourselves because that's what he did. He made an image for himself. I don't want to carry or bear the image of God, so I'm going to form my own image and I'm going to look like myself. And I encourage you as humanity to follow along and make yourself your own image and be whatever you want to be. But yet we, in our ignorance, don't even know that we're really not being whatever we want to be. We're being what the enemy wants us to be. Because his whole goal and objective is to distort everything that God made beautiful when he made creation. All of creation was made to reflect God. But we as human beings had a special task, a unique look, a unique design about ourselves that distinguished us from all other things God created. He created us to look like him. And everything that is beautiful is God. When we look at the sun and the moon and the stars and the sky, when we are able to enjoy the change of seasons. I love to see spring and how the flowers blossom because it shows forth the beauty of God. And we are able to look like God when we display the beauty of God's character, of God's nature, of God himself. We are not God. We are like God. It's a big difference. Never in the word did it say Jesus was like God. It says Jesus was God. We are representatives of his figure. We model God. Jesus is God. There is a difference. And when we model God, we model the exact image God called us to be and restored us to be when he redeemed us, when he brought us back from the bondage that was brought to us through sin and freed us so that we can live again. We now are able to carry, to display who God is in nature. So when people see us, they should see a resemblance of God and the image we are to bear. Because everyone was designed to bear an image. All of humanity is designed to bear an image. Why do you think the enemy has worked so hard to label us at our birth to be this or to be that? What do you think zodiac signs are? It is us being made in the image of whatever that sign is at birth. That's why I do not disclose to people when I was born. Because you're not going to tie me to any zodiac sign. And the fact that we as Christians are getting involved in the zodiac signs, it shows our ignorance to what that is. The enemy says, you know what? I got an idea. Let me tie them to another image at their birth. And this image is going to describe who you are, display who you are. You're going to identify with this thing. You're going to find your identity in this image. And you're going to wrap your life around you being that zodiac sign that is contrary to the image of God. What zodiac sign displays God's image? Not one. Not one. We can go even further with the birthstones. Is it wrong to have a birthstone? You gotta ask God. I'm not God. Yet I don't want to identify with anything that is not according to what God predestined me to be before the foundation of this world. Is there anything wrong with having jewels or precious stones? It comes from God. God created it. But he didn't create us for it. He created it for us. And that's such a big difference. Those things should not have power over us. We are to have power over it. We were given dominion over it. Them things don't define us. We are defined by what God says we are. He says you are a royal priesthood. You are royalty. You come from royalty. And you are a servant of the Most High God. God is love. So I am displaying love. God is righteous. So I am displaying righteousness. And we have to get into the word of God to determine what righteousness is. Righteousness is not whatever we want it to be. What we want to be right is not righteousness. But what God declares is right is righteousness. There is a self-righteousness that is embedded in our own image. Here we go again, back to our own image. That we want to bear for ourselves that is not aligned to the word of God and opposes God himself. We have to get back to what God declared for us to be. Because there is an identity crisis. and identity theft that is going on rampantly in our world, making people think you can be whatever you want to be. And when we have that mindset of being whatever we want to be, we've made an idol out of ourselves. And what exactly is an idol? An idol is an image and replacement of God. Even when you look in scriptures, they don't really use the word idol as often as we think. It uses a graven image. But in reading that word graven image, which is a carved image, we know that it's speaking of an idol. And I spoke of in my book, Soothing Aroma. Purchase it whenever you get a chance. You can find it on Amazon, on my website, thecalledoutchurch.org, or Google it, Soothing Aroma, Taisha Thompson. And I speak about in my book, there's a chapter speaking of idols and what an idol is. An idol is an image in replacement for God. Lord, I don't want to look like you. I don't want to sound like you. I don't want to portray you. I want to make my own image. And when we do that, we now not just sin, but we go against the very nature of what God created us to be. Whenever we want to make an idol for ourselves, we put aside the image God called us to bear, and that is His image. This is why the commandment tells us offhand not to bear or make an image for yourselves. Because when we do that, we are now refusing to carry the image of God. We can't bear our own image and God's image at the same time. And even when we bear our own image, we're really taking on the identity of Satan, whether we want to accept it or not. That is what we're doing. We're making our identity Satan's identity, which is rebellion. We are rebelling against God. But praise be to God that in our knowledge of the word, we know that we can be restored and renewed back to what God has called us to be, an image of God. And even now, I encourage you to find security in God and representing God. And it's okay. We live in a world that does not want to represent God, and that's embedded in their own identity, their own image, what they want to look like. Even when we think of the beast with the mark in the book of Revelation, he has an image. And one of the things that he was doing was deceiving the people in the earth and making them make an image to the beast and to worship that image. When you get a chance, read Revelation 13, verses 11 through 14, about the beast with the mark. Alongside of the mark of the beast is an image, because image is everything when we speak of humanity, because God created us. It's in our nature to bear an image. But I encourage you, let us bear the image of God. Let us reflect God. Let us display God. Let us look like God. Not be God, but represent Him and represent Him well. Thanks for tuning into this podcast. Join me again as we continue to simplify the Word of God. Until next time, be blessed.